This is not a story about success. This is not a story about confidence. This is the story of Franz Kafka, a man who felt invisible in his own life. People knew his name, they saw him every day, but they did not see who he really was. Kafka lived in a world that felt too loud for him, too strict, too heavy. From the outside, his life looked normal, a job, a family, a routine. But inside, he felt like a stranger, like someone who did not belong anywhere. He was quiet, not because he had nothing to say, but because words felt dangerous. Every word felt like it could expose him. Every look felt like judgment. He learned early how to hide his thoughts and protect his inner world. As a young man, Kafka tried to live the life others expected. He went to work, he followed rules, he did what was asked of him. People thought he was polite and responsible. They did not know how tired he felt inside. At night, when the city became silent, Kafka felt more alive. In the quiet, his thoughts finally had space. Fear, doubt, and questions came to the surface. He wrote not to be famous, but to survive. Writing was the only place where he could breathe. Even then, he did not feel free. He doubted every sentence. He doubted himself. He asked the same question again and again. Why do I feel like I do not belong in this world? Kafka did not want power. He did not want attention. He wanted understanding. And that was the one thing he never felt he had. This is where his story begins. Not with fame, not with success, but with a quiet fear that followed him everywhere. Kafka lived in Prague, a city full of voices, rules, and expectations. Streets were busy, offices were strict. People knew where they were going. Kafka did too, at least on the surface. Every morning he went to work. He wore the right clothes, he sat at his desk, he followed the system. He worked in an office where everything had order, papers, numbers, procedures. His job was stable, safe, reasonable. For his family, this mattered. A good job meant security. It meant respect. It meant a future that made sense. Kafka understood this, and still, every day felt heavy. He sat among other people, but felt alone. Conversations moved around him, not through him. He listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, he chose his words carefully, afraid to say too much, afraid to say the wrong thing. Silence felt safer than explanation. At home, the pressure was stronger. His father's presence filled the room, strong voice, clear opinions, clear ideas about what a man should be. Kafka felt small next to that certainty. He tried to be enough, tried to meet expectations, but the gap between who he was and who he was supposed to be only grew wider. He felt watched, judged, measured, not only by others, but by himself. Every small mistake felt like proof that he was weak, proof that he did not fit, proof that something inside him was broken. The days followed a rhythm that left no space. Work, family, sleep, repeat. On the outside, nothing was wrong. On the inside, he felt trapped in a life that was not truly his. Prague did not feel like home. The office did not feel like purpose. Even his own body felt like a place he did not fully control. Anxiety lived close to him. Fear followed him quietly like a shadow. He wanted to escape, but not by running away. He wanted a door that did not exist, a way to live honestly in a world that demanded masks. This quiet pressure shaped him. It did not break him loudly. It pressed inward, slowly, day by day. And inside that pressure, something began to grow. Not confidence, not rebellion, but a deep inner world that only he could see.
Inside Kafka lived two worlds. One was visible. It went to work every day. It followed rules. It spoke politely and stayed quiet. This world knew how to survive. The other world was hidden. It was full of images, fear, questions, and strange thoughts that never left him alone. This world did not follow rules. It did not fit schedules. It woke up at night and refused to sleep. During the day, Kafka tried to keep these worlds apart. He focused on tasks. He answered letters. He did what was expected. But the second world was patient. It waited, and every night it returned. When the city became quiet, Kafka finally felt awake. He sat alone in his room. The noise of the day slowly faded, and then the thoughts came, stronger, clearer, impossible to ignore. He began to write, not because he believed in himself, not because he thought the words were good. He wrote because the thoughts had nowhere else to go. Writing was not a dream, it was a necessity. Without it, he felt like he would disappear. Still, writing did not bring peace. Every sentence felt wrong. Every page felt unfinished. He was never satisfied. He doubted every word, every idea, every feeling. He was afraid that his inner world was too strange, too dark, too much. Sometimes he wanted to destroy what he wrote. Sometimes he wanted to hide it forever. He did not see himself as a writer. He saw himself as someone who was failing to explain something important. The more he wrote, the stronger the conflict became. The office demanded order. Writing demanded honesty. One world wanted silence. The other wanted truth. Kafka stood between them, exhausted. He felt guilty when he worked. He felt guilty when he wrote. No choice felt right. No path felt safe. His life became a constant tension between what he was and what he felt forced to be. This tension shaped everything: his thoughts, his relationships, his body. Fear lived inside him, but it was not loud. It was quiet, deep, and constant. Kafka did not know which world would win. He only knew that he could not live without either of them, and that was the trap. Kafka wanted closeness, but closeness scared him. He longed for connection, yet the idea of being fully seen filled him with fear. Love for him was not simple warmth, it was pressure. When he was with someone who cared about him, the conflict inside grew stronger. Expectations returned. Questions appeared. Who should I be for this person? How much of myself can I show? What happens if they see everything? He wanted to be honest, but honesty felt dangerous. It meant exposure. It meant judgment. It meant the risk of disappointing someone he cared about. Kafka felt torn between desire and fear. He dreamed of a quiet life shared with another person. At the same time, he felt that such a life would demand something he could not give: stability, strength, certainty. Relationships made him feel responsible in a way that writing never did. Writing asked only for truth. Love asked for presence, decisions, and a future. These demands felt heavy, sometimes unbearable. The more he tried to move closer to others, the more he felt himself pulling back. He doubted his ability to be a good partner. He doubted his ability to live a normal life. And these doubts slowly turned into distance.
People around him saw hesitation. They saw uncertainty. They did not see the storm inside. They did not see how deeply he wanted connection and how deeply he feared it. Pressure followed him everywhere. Pressure to work, pressure to marry, pressure to become someone clear and defined. Kafka felt like his life was always being evaluated, as if he was constantly failing an invisible test. His body began to react. Fatigue, anxiety, weakness. The inner tension was no longer only in his thoughts. It lived in him physically. His fear was not imagined, it was felt. Writing remained his only safe place. On the page, he could tell the truth without being interrupted, without being corrected, without being required to explain himself. But even this safety came with a cost. The more he lived inside his inner world, the harder it became to live in the outer one. Love demanded a whole person. Kafka felt divided. Kafka did not live long. He did not see himself as important. He did not believe that his words would matter to many people. For most of his life, he felt unsure, fragile, and incomplete. When he thought about his writing, he often felt ashamed. He asked others to destroy his work after his death. He did not trust his own voice. He did not see what others would later see. But his words stayed. They stayed because they spoke for people who could not explain their fear, for those who felt watched, judged, and trapped inside systems they did not understand, for those who felt too quiet for the world they lived in. Kafka never became loud. He never became confident. He never became free in the way others expected. But he became honest. Through his stories, his inner world found a shape. Confusion became language. Fear became meaning. Silence became something that could be shared. Many years later, people read his words and recognized themselves. They feel less alone, less strange, less broken. Not because Kafka solved their problems, but because he named them. Kafka did not teach people how to live. He showed them how it feels to struggle quietly. Some lives are not about victory. Some lives are about expression. And some voices are heard only after the person is gone. This was the story of Franz Kafka, a man who felt invisible and who gave a voice to millions of invisible people.
Thanks! Please subscribe and like. Spin a new yarn with us every week. See you there!